Part 1. Commissioner Hun sat in her office on the central station and stared at the numbers on her screen. For the 15th year in a row, the numbers were bad. Every species in the galaxy said the same thing about their celebrations. They were fine, they were okay, they were acceptable. Nobody said they were wonderful. Nobody said they had the time of their lives. This was her job. She ran the Galactic Celebration Standards Commission. Her team spent decades studying how different species celebrated important moments. They used math and science to create the perfect celebrations. They measured brain chemicals. They tracked social bonding. They timed every speech and every song down to the second. Everything was optimized. Everything was efficient. Everything was, apparently, incredibly boring. Hun had 4 eyes and all of them were tired. She came from a species called the Archivists. Her people loved order and precision. For 3,000 years, the Commission had brought order to celebrations across 847 different species. They had eliminated chaos. They had removed uncertainty. They had made celebrations predictable and safe. And somehow, in doing all of that, they had killed joy. The door to her office opened. Researcher Nix walked in. He was from a species called the Explorers. He looked like a large insect with shiny black armor and clicking mandibles. He carried a data pad in his smaller arms. "Commissioner, I think I found something," Nix said. His voice came through a translator device that hung around his neck. Hun gestured for him to continue. She was ready to try anything at this point. Nix tapped his data pad and projected a video into the air between them. "This is from a newly contacted species. Humans. They live on a planet called Earth. We just made first contact 6 months ago. They're not very advanced. They barely have space travel, but our anthropology team sent back something interesting." The video showed a large room filled with humans. The room had white fabric hanging from the ceiling. There were flowers everywhere. Round tables filled the space and humans sat at them, eating and talking. Music played loudly from speakers in the corner. "This is called a wedding reception," Nix explained. "It's how humans celebrate when 2 of them decide to become life partners." Hun watched the video. At first it looked normal enough. Humans ate food, they talked to each other, then something strange happened. A human female in a white dress stood on a chair. She turned her back to a crowd of other females and threw a bundle of flowers over her shoulder. The other females screamed and pushed each other, fighting to catch the flowers. One of them fell down. Everyone laughed, including the one who fell. "Why are they fighting over plants?" Hun asked. "We don't fully understand yet," Nix admitted. "But watch this next part." The video shifted. A human male was now on his knees in front of the female in the white dress. She sat on a chair with her leg extended. The male grabbed a piece of fabric on her leg with his teeth and pulled it down while other humans cheered and made loud noises. Some of them were hitting their hands together rapidly. Others were whistling. Hun stared at the screen. What possible purpose does that serve? Unknown, but here's the important part. Nix pulled up another screen. This one showed brain scan data. "We ran emotional analysis on the humans during this event. Their joy levels were 340% higher than anything we've ever recorded at our optimized celebrations. They maintained peak happiness for 6 hours straight. The emotional impact lasted for weeks after the event ended." Hun leaned forward. "That's impossible. Our celebrations are scientifically perfect. We've optimized everything." "I know," Nix said. "That's why I brought this to you. Watch more." The video continued. Humans stood up and moved to an open area in the center of the room. Music played and they started moving their bodies in rhythmic patterns. But unlike the professional dancers at galactic celebrations, these humans had no coordination. They moved differently from each other. Some moved well. Others looked ridiculous. One older human male was simply shifting his weight from one foot to the other and moving his arms in small circles. Then the music changed. A new song started, and suddenly all the humans began doing the same strange movements. They turned to the right, then to the left. They bent their knees. They flapped their arms like wings and wiggled their rear ends. The movements looked completely absurd. "This is called the chicken dance," Nix said. "We have no idea why." Despite herself, Hun felt something strange. The humans looked silly. They knew they looked silly, and they clearly didn't care. They were laughing. They were smiling. Some of them were doing the movements wrong, and others were helping them learn. The joy on their faces was real and uncontrolled and chaotic. It was everything the Commission had worked to eliminate from galactic celebrations. "Show me more," Hun said quietly. Nix played several more videos. In one, a human gave a speech about the couple getting married. The speech was too long and rambling. The human telling the story was clearly intoxicated by ethanol, a substance humans consumed for recreational purposes. He told an embarrassing story about the groom getting his head stuck in a metal fence as a child. Everyone laughed, including the groom. The joy reading spiked even higher. In another video, something went wrong. A large decorated food item called a cake was being moved, and part of it collapsed and fell on the floor. At a proper galactic celebration, this would have been a disaster requiring immediate professional intervention. Instead, the humans laughed. Someone made a joke. They ate the rest of the cake anyway. The celebration continued, somehow even better than before. "I don't understand," Hun said. "Everything about this is wrong. There's no order, no structure. Things go wrong and they just continue anyway. Half the humans are eating while others are dancing. Some are talking while speeches happen. The timing is completely random. It's chaos." "Yes," Nix agreed. "But their joy levels are higher than we've ever achieved with perfect order." Hun sat back in her chair. Her mind raced with the implications. The Commission had spent developing celebration science. They had rules and protocols and best practices. Every culture in the galaxy followed their guidelines, and all of it might be wrong. "We need to study this more," she said finally. "Assemble a research team. I want our best cultural anthropologists and celebration engineers. Send them to Earth. Have them attend these wedding receptions and figure out what the humans know that we don't." Nix clicked his mandibles together, a sign of agreement in his species. "How many should they observe?" "As many as it takes to understand. Give them whatever resources they need." Hun paused, then added, "And Nix, keep this quiet for now. If the other commissioners find out we're taking celebration advice from a species that barely has space travel, they'll think I've lost my mind." "Understood," Nix said. He turned to leave, then stopped. "Commissioner, may I say something?" "Go ahead." "I've been doing this work for 40 years. I've studied celebrations on 300 different worlds. I've never seen anything like what these humans do. It shouldn't work. By every measure we have, it should be a disaster, but it's not. It's the opposite." He gestured to the frozen image on the screen, where a group of humans held each other in a tight circle, swaying together with tears and smiles on their faces. "Maybe we've been measuring the wrong things." After Nix left, Hun sat alone in her office for a long time. She watched the videos again and again. She studied the humans with their chaotic joy, their imperfect celebrations, their willingness to look silly and make mistakes and keep celebrating anyway. Something the humans did created a kind of happiness her people had forgotten existed. It wasn't calm contentment or satisfied approval. It was wild and messy and completely uncontrolled. It was the kind of joy that made you forget to care about looking proper or following protocols. It was real. And if Hun was honest with herself, she couldn't remember the last time she had felt anything like it. She pulled up the request forms and started assembling the research team. If humans had discovered something about celebration that the rest of the galaxy had missed, she needed to know what it was, even if it meant questioning everything the Commission had built. Even if it meant admitting that 3,000 years of celebration science might have been heading in completely the wrong direction. She approved the mission and sent the orders. Within a week, the finest research minds in the galaxy would be on Earth, attending human wedding receptions and trying to solve the mystery of human joy. Hun hoped they would find answers. The galaxy needed them, because somewhere along the way to perfect celebrations, everyone had stopped actually celebrating, and the numbers proved it. Maybe these strange humans with their chicken dance, and their falling cakes, and their absurd flower-throwing traditions knew something the galaxy had forgotten. Maybe joy wasn't something you could optimize. Maybe it was something you had to allow. Part 2. The research team arrived on Earth 3 weeks later. There were 12 of them, representing different species from across the galaxy. Dr. Kays was a pattern analyst from the Logic Weavers, a species that saw the universe in mathematical sequences, was a cultural specialist from the Empaths, who could sense emotional states. Commander represented the Pragmatists, a species known for cutting through confusion with direct observation. And researcher Nix led the team, reporting everything back to Commissioner Hun. They established a base in a human city called Chicago. To blend in, they disguised themselves using holographic projectors. They registered as a documentary film crew studying human customs. Humans, they learned quickly, would allow almost anything if you claimed to be making a documentary. Their first wedding was the Martinez celebration. The invitation said it would start at 6 in the evening at a venue called the Rustic Barn. The team arrived early with their equipment, emotional resonance scanners, behavioral analysis cameras, and detailed observation protocols. The venue was indeed a barn that had been converted for celebrations. Wooden beams crossed the ceiling. White lights hung everywhere, creating a soft glow. Round tables were arranged around a central dance floor. Each table had flowers and candles. Soft music played from speakers. "This is more orderly than the videos suggested," Dr. Kays said with relief. "Perhaps we can map the logical flow of events." That optimism lasted approximately 30 minutes. The ceremony ended and guests moved into the barn for the reception. The invitation said dinner would be served at 7. At 6:45, some humans were already eating appetizers. At 7:15, dinner still hadn't started. Nobody seemed concerned. Humans wandered between tables, talking to each other. Some went to the bar and got drinks. Others went straight to the dance floor even though no formal dancing had been announced. "There's no structure," Kays said, his 3 eye stalks swiveling in confusion. "How do they know what to do next?" "They don't," Nix observed, checking his scanner. "But their stress levels are low. They're comfortable with the uncertainty." A human in a dark suit approached them. His name tag said he was David, the best man. "You guys with the documentary?" "Yes," said smoothly. "We're documenting human celebration customs." "Cool, cool, you picked a good one. Jake and Maria throw a great party." David was holding a glass of something amber-colored. His speech was slightly imprecise. "You want me to explain what's happening?" "Please," Kay said eagerly. "Okay, so right now is cocktail hour. People are mingling. Then we'll do dinner, then speeches, then the first dance, then cake cutting, then the party really gets going." David grinned. "At least that's the plan. But honestly, who knows? At my sister's wedding, the DJ didn't show up and we ended up just playing music from someone's phone. Best wedding I've ever been to." He walked away before Kays could ask how a failed DJ could make a celebration better. Dinner finally started at 7:40. Humans sat at their assigned tables. Food was served. But even during the meal, the structure dissolved. Some humans finished eating quickly and went to the bar. Others took their time, talking and laughing. A few got up to greet friends at other tables. Children ran between the tables playing a game. "This is maddening," Kays muttered, frantically taking notes. "There are no clear phases. Everything overlaps." Then the speeches began. At proper galactic celebrations, speeches were prepared in advance, reviewed by committee, and delivered by trained orators. They were exactly 5 minutes long and covered specific topics in a specific order. David, the best man, stood up with his microphone. He was definitely intoxicated now. "Hey everyone, hey, if I could have your attention." He tapped his glass with a fork, making a ringing sound. The room gradually quieted. "So, I'm supposed to say nice things about Jake. But first, I gotta tell you about the time in 3rd grade when he got his head stuck in a fence." The room erupted in laughter. Jake, the groom, covered his face with his hands, grinning. David told a long, rambling story that went off topic several times. He forgot details and had to backtrack. He made jokes that didn't quite land. At one point, he got emotional and had to stop talking for a moment. It was, by galactic standards, a terrible speech. The emotional resonance scanners showed joy levels spiking to unprecedented heights. "I don't understand," said softly. "He's humiliating his friend in public, but his friend's joy is increasing, not decreasing. And everyone is laughing with him, not at him," Commander noted. "They're bonding over shared history and vulnerability." More speeches followed. The maid of honor cried during hers. The bride's father made jokes that were slightly inappropriate. The groom's mother told a story about Maria that made Maria blush and hide her face in Jake's shoulder. Every speech was imperfect. Every speech generated massive emotional responses. After dinner, the music started properly. A human DJ announced the first dance. Jake and Maria moved to the center of the floor while everyone watched. They swayed together to a slow song. They weren't skilled dancers, but that clearly wasn't the point. They held each other and smiled and whispered things the scanners couldn't pick up. "This is a pair bonding display," Kay said, "similar to what we've seen in." He stopped talking because something unexpected happened. Halfway through the song, Jake spun Maria outward, but he miscalculated. She stumbled. Her shoe came off. She nearly fell. At a proper celebration, this would have been mortifying. Instead, Jake and Maria both started laughing. Maria kicked off her other shoe. They continued dancing barefoot. The crowd cheered louder. "They're celebrating the mistake," Nick said quietly. "It made the moment more memorable, not less." Then everyone was invited to the dance floor. What followed was beautiful chaos. Older humans danced slowly in pairs. Younger humans jumped and moved energetically to faster songs. Children spun in circles until they got dizzy. Nobody danced particularly well except for one couple who everyone stopped to watch, clapping and cheering them on. The DJ announced the chicken dance. The team had seen this in the videos, but experiencing it in person was different. Every human in the room knew what to do. They formed loose lines on the dance floor. The music started. They all did the same silly movements: beak, wings, wiggle, clap. "It's a synchronized ritual," Kay said, "but there's no practical purpose. It doesn't tell a story or demonstrate skill. It's just silly." Finished. "It's just silly, and they love it because it's silly." Commander had moved closer to the dance floor. He watched a group of humans ranging from age 5 to age 75 all doing the chicken dance together. The youngest ones didn't know all the moves, so older ones showed them. Everyone was laughing. Everyone was ridiculous. Everyone was completely unself-conscious about being ridiculous together. "I think I'm beginning to understand," said slowly. "It's not about the activity itself. It's about the shared experience of doing something that doesn't matter. The lack of purpose is the purpose." Later in the evening, disaster struck. The cake was being wheeled out on a cart when one of the wheels caught on the floor. The cart tilted. The top layer of the cake slid off and splattered onto the ground. Frosting went everywhere. The team tensed, waiting for the distress response. At any galactic celebration, this would trigger emergency protocols. Professionals would rush in. Apologies would be issued. The celebration would pause while things were corrected. Instead, Maria burst out laughing. "Oh my God, that's so perfect. Of course that happened." Jake grabbed her hand. "Well, we've got 3 more layers, and honestly, that top layer was probably dry anyway." Someone started clapping. Then everyone was clapping and laughing. A small child ran forward and stuck his finger in the fallen cake, tasting it. His mother scolded him, but she was smiling. Someone took a photo of the collapsed cake. People joked that it was a metaphor for marriage. The cake cutting continued with the remaining layers. The celebration somehow felt even more energetic than before. The team stayed until the very end. They watched humans hug goodbye. They watched the bride and groom leave under a shower of rice. They watched the cleanup crew start working while a few remaining guests lingered at the bar, not wanting the night to end. Back at their base, the team compiled their data. They had hours of footage and thousands of data points, but the numbers alone didn't explain what they had witnessed. In all my years of celebration analysis, Dr. Kays said, removing his holographic disguise, I've never seen anything like this. They violate every principle we teach. No structure, no efficiency, no predictability. And yet their joy was real, finished. Not engineered, not optimized, just real. They attended 4 more weddings over the next 2 weeks. A small ceremony in a garden where it rained and everyone got wet and laughed about it. A large hotel ballroom wedding with 300 guests where the DJ played the wrong song for the first dance, and the couple danced to it anyway. A backyard wedding where the groom's dog ran through during the ceremony and everyone cheered. Every wedding was different. Every wedding had things go wrong. Every wedding was, by galactic standards, poorly organized and inefficient. Every wedding generated more joy than the team had experienced in their entire careers. On the last night before they were scheduled to leave Earth, Commander asked if they could attend one more wedding. This one was smaller, at a restaurant, for a couple named Sarah and Bate. During the reception, a human guest noticed watching the dancing with what might have been longing. You should join, the human said. Anyone can dance. I don't know how, admitted. Neither do half the people out there, come on. And before he could protest, found himself on the dance floor with a human teaching him basic steps. He was terrible at it. His species had 4 legs and they didn't bend the right way. He kept stepping on his partner's feet. But every time he messed up, the human laughed and showed him again, and somehow that made it okay. Later, sat with the research team in their borrowed hotel room. Nobody spoke for a long time. Finally, Nix broke the silence. I think we've been asking the wrong question. We've been trying to figure out how humans create joy, but that's not what they do. What do they do? Kays asked. They allow it, Nix said simply. They create space for it to happen and then they get out of the way. They don't control joy, they just let it exist. Nodded slowly. And they do it together. The joy isn't in the perfection. It's in the shared imperfection, in being silly and vulnerable and human with each other. The team sent their report to Commissioner Hun. The conclusion was simple and devastating to everything the Commission had built. Humans had discovered that you cannot engineer joy. You can only create conditions where it might emerge, and then trust people to find it themselves. Part 3. The report landed on Commissioner Hun's desk like a bomb. She read it 3 times, then called an emergency session of the full commission. Representatives from 847 species filled the Great Hall on Central Station. The room buzzed with confusion and concern. Hun stood at the podium and presented the findings. She showed videos of humans doing the chicken dance. She explained the bouquet toss and the best man speech and the cake disaster. She presented the data showing joy levels that exceeded anything the galaxy had achieved in 3,000 years. The response was immediate and hostile. This is absurd, declared Commissioner of the Crystal Singers. These humans are primitives. They've barely achieved space travel. You're suggesting we abandon of celebration science to copy their chaos. I'm suggesting, Hun said calmly, that our celebration science has failed. The satisfaction ratings prove it. Our celebrations are perfect and nobody enjoys them. The humans don't even know what they're doing, argued Commissioner of the Logical Consortium. They have no protocols, no standards. Things go wrong at their celebrations constantly. Yes, Hun agreed, and they're happier than we are. The debate raged for hours. Some commissioners were curious. Most were outraged. The idea that advanced galactic civilizations should learn from humans was humiliating. The idea that structure and optimization might be the problem, not the solution, contradicted everything they believed. In the end, Hun made a proposal. Let me prove it. The Grand Confluence is in 4 months. Let me organize it using human principles. If it fails, I'll resign. If it succeeds, we consider changing our approach across the galaxy. The vote was close, but it passed. Hun suspected that most commissioners voted yes because they wanted to see her fail. She contacted Earth and hired a human celebration planner named. Was in her 50s, with short gray hair and a no-nonsense attitude that even the most intimidating alien species found difficult to argue with. She had planned over 300 weddings. When Hun explained what she needed, was quiet for a long moment. You want me to plan a party for 800 different alien species, most of whom have never met humans, using wedding reception rules? Yes. That's either the craziest thing I've ever heard or the most interesting job I'll ever have. Grinned. I'm in, but I have conditions. Name them. First, I'm in charge, completely. No committees overruling my decisions. Second, we do this my way, which means expect chaos. Third, you all need to trust the process even when it looks like everything's falling apart. Hun agreed to all of it. The planning was a nightmare. Threw out 3,000 years of celebration protocols and started from scratch. Instead of assigned seating based on diplomatic hierarchy, she created mixed tables where different species would be forced to interact. Instead of carefully curated menus, she set up food stations where everyone could try each other's cuisine. Instead of professional entertainment, she hired a DJ and announced that anyone could request songs or perform if they wanted. The other commissioners watched in horror as their perfect systems were dismantled. Brought in human decorators who filled the grand hall with lights and flowers and colorful fabric. She hired human caterers who looked at the list of species attending and somehow created food that 300 different biology types could safely consume. She programmed the DJ with music from across the galaxy, plus a healthy dose of human wedding classics. The chicken dance is non-negotiable, announced at one planning meeting. I don't care if half of you don't have arms, we'll figure it out. The night of the Grand Confluence arrived. Dignitaries from across the galaxy came in their formal diplomatic attire. They entered the grand hall and stopped, confused. There was music playing. There were no assigned seats, just tables with name cards encouraging certain combinations. There was no receiving line or formal greeting protocol. What do we do? Asked Ambassador of the warrior caste, a massive being with 6 legs and armor plating. Whatever you want, told him cheerfully. Grab some food, find a seat, talk to someone new. This is a party, not a diplomatic summit. The dignitaries stood around awkwardly for the first hour. They were used to structure and protocols. They kept waiting for someone to tell them what to do next. The energy in the room was stiff and uncomfortable. Hun felt panic rising. This was a disaster. She had risked her entire career on this experiment, and the galaxy's most important people were standing around looking confused and uncomfortable. Then grabbed the microphone. All right, everyone, listen up. I'm a human and I planned this party. I know this is different from what you're used to. But here's the thing, you all came here tonight to celebrate another year of galactic cooperation. So let's actually celebrate. I'm going to teach you a dance that every human knows. It's called the electric slide. It's easy, it's silly, and we're all going to do it together. The DJ started the music, demonstrated the steps. Most of the dignitaries looked at each other uncertainly. Ambassador, the massive warrior, was the first to step forward. I will attempt this human ritual, he announced. His species valued courage above all else. His 6 legs struggled to follow the pattern. He was terrible at it. The humans in the room cheered him on, adjusted the steps to work with his physiology. He tried again. He was still terrible, but this time he was terrible with more confidence. Slowly, others joined. A crystal singer whose body was made of living crystal clicked and chimed as she moved. A methane breather in his environmental suit bounced in something approximating the rhythm. Young diplomats dragged their more reluctant elders onto the floor. The room was chaos. Dozens of species, all trying to do the same simple dance, all failing in different ways, all laughing at themselves and each other. The rigid diplomatic facades cracked. Species that had never spoken except in formal negotiations were now dancing next to each other, showing each other the steps, colliding occasionally and apologizing and laughing. Hun stood at the edge and watched with all four eyes wide. The emotional scanners she had hidden around the room were going wild. Joy levels were climbing. Social bonding indexes were spiking. This was actually working. Dinner was served buffet style. Dignitaries had to get up and serve themselves, which meant they mingled and talked while waiting in line. A crystalline elder ended up at a table with a human grandmother and a young diplomatic aide from the empaths. They started sharing pictures of their offspring, and the crystal singer's offspring were literal fragments of herself that had broken off and grown independently. The human grandmother showed photos on her phone. The empath showed a holographic recording. They were completely different species with completely different biology, and yet somehow they were all complaining about the same things. Their kids didn't visit enough, they never listened to advice, but they loved them anyway. The formal speeches were scheduled, but had changed them. Instead of long diplomatic addresses, each speaker had 3 minutes. They were encouraged to tell personal stories, not recite achievements. Commissioner of the Logical Consortium went first. He walked to the microphone intending to give his prepared remarks about the importance of logical cooperation. But looking out at the room, at species dancing and laughing and talking, he found himself telling a different story. He talked about attending his first grand confluence 200 years ago as a young researcher. He talked about being too nervous to talk to anyone. He talked about spending the whole evening in a corner, wishing someone would acknowledge him. "I spent that night feeling alone in a room full of people," said quietly. "Tonight, I've already had more genuine conversations than in the last 100 years of these events. I believe we may have forgotten what these gatherings are for." The room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Others joined. The applause was long and warm. Later in the evening, disaster struck exactly as had predicted it would. The main power system overloaded from all the DJ equipment. The lights went out. For a moment, there was darkness and confusion. Then a crystalline being started glowing, their body lighting up from within. Others with bioluminescence joined in. Someone projected a hologram of stars across the ceiling. A methane breather released a cloud of luminous gas that swirled in beautiful patterns. Instead of emergency protocols and formal apologies, the species turned the power failure into an impromptu light show. The DJ switched to battery power and kept the music going. People danced in the colorful lights created by a dozen different species. It was more beautiful than anything the original lighting design could have achieved. Hun found herself pulled onto the dance floor by during a slow song. All around them, beings from across the galaxy swayed together. Some danced in pairs. Some formed small groups. Some just stood and moved gently to the music. Everyone was doing it differently. It was completely uncoordinated. "It was perfect." "You look surprised," said, smiling up at Hun. "I spent 3,000 years trying to create perfect celebrations," Hun said softly. "I optimized everything, and I failed." "You didn't fail," corrected gently. "You just forgot that joy isn't something you create. It's something you allow. You created all the right conditions. You just didn't leave room for people to be people." Hun looked around the dance floor. At the methane dancers doing the Cupid shuffle with obvious delight. At the crystal singers belting out human karaoke songs with enthusiasm that far exceeded their actual skill. At dignitaries wearing silly props from the photo booth. at species who had been cold diplomatic colleagues for centuries, now exchanging contact information and promising to visit. I understand now, Hun said. Joy isn't something you optimize, it's something you allow to emerge. And it emerges from connection, from shared experience, from being willing to look silly together. Now you're getting it, said. Also, the bouquet toss is in 5 minutes. I've adapted it for species without hands. You're participating. The bouquet toss became a strange object that everyone could grab somehow, regardless of their physiology. When through it, 3 species caught it simultaneously and ended up in a friendly argument about who technically had it first. They decided to split it 3 ways and declare everyone winners. The party continued until the early morning hours. When it finally ended, the satisfaction surveys showed the highest ratings in recorded history. More importantly, 12 new interspecies friendships had formed. 5 collaborative scientific projects were initiated that night. 3 marriage proposals occurred between beings who had never previously considered interspecies bonding. The commission met the next day. Nobody spoke for a long time. Finally, Commissioner stood up. I believe I owe you an apology, Commissioner Hun. I spent last night talking to people I've avoided for 50 years. I danced badly to something called Don't Stop. I ate food I'd never tried and laughed more than I have in decades. She paused. The humans are right. We forgot what celebration means. The vote was unanimous. Human wedding reception principles would become the new galactic standard. Across 847 worlds, celebration protocols were rewritten. Structure was reduced. Spontaneity was encouraged. The chicken dance was officially added to the database of important cross-species rituals. Retired wealthy, having consulted on over 4,000 interspecies celebrations. She trained teams of celebration planners from across the galaxy. Her final instruction to them was always the same. Keep the music going, make sure everyone can participate somehow, and remember that if something goes wrong, it's not a disaster. It's a memory. Commissioner Hun kept her position and her new mission. She traveled the galaxy teaching species to celebrate again. She explained that joy came from connection, from vulnerability, from being willing to be imperfect together. She told them about humans and their strange wisdom about parties. Years later, at a celebration on a distant world, Hun watched a group of mixed species doing the chicken dance. They were all terrible at it. They were all laughing. They were all completely, genuinely happy. A young being approached her from a species she didn't recognize. "Excuse me, are you Commissioner Hun, the one who learned about celebrations from humans?" "Yes. I've heard the stories, that you risked everything to change how we celebrate, that you learned from a species less advanced than us." The young being hesitated. "Can I ask you something? How did humans figure this out when the rest of us couldn't?" Hun thought about that for a long moment. "I think humans understand something fundamental about joy. They know that life is short and uncertain. They know that perfection is impossible. So they decided to celebrate anyway, with all the mess and imperfection and chaos. They decided that being together mattered more than getting it right." She watched the dance floor, where beings from 100 different worlds were attempting coordinated movements and mostly failing, and not caring at all. "We spent trying to eliminate uncertainty from celebration," Hun continued. "Humans taught us that uncertainty is where joy lives, in the unexpected moments, in the things that go wrong and become funny stories, in the vulnerability of dancing badly and not caring who sees." The young being nodded slowly. "I hope I get to visit Earth someday, to thank them." "If you do," Hun said with a smile, "tell them that the galaxy learned to celebrate again because of them. Tell them that 847 species do the chicken dance now. Tell them that we finally understand what they knew all along." "What's that?" "That the best celebrations aren't perfect. They're just perfectly shared." The music changed to a new song, something upbeat and energetic. The young being,